to the next song. This is, I believe it was Monty Python that said, "And now for something completely different."
Right.
When you are listening to this album and you go from Languish for Love to The Home of Our God.
Oh, yeah. It's a bit startling.
It's now for something completely different. Yeah. So it's definitely a gear change musically. But where were you going? How were you getting from Languish to Home of Our God?
Well, it is a startling. It starts off with this fanfare horn thing and big vocal thing, and it just kind of makes you sit out of your seat pretty quickly and stuff. And I put it there because there's nowhere else to put it on the album. Like there was no way of putting us on the album where it didn't startle you. And so it felt to me though that at that point in the album, we could use a shift of thinking. And so that signals, okay, enough of that. And then you start with this. The song itself, actually, 3 songs on the album actually came from the same thing. I did a Lent retreat with Kathleen Norris 2 years ago down in the States. And she's an educator. She's a prayer retreat leader. She's an author, brilliant. And she gave 3 talks on Lent. And I got these in advance, and she asked me if I could choose songs that would go with them. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't find anything that suited. And so I wrote. I just took sort of her text or the text that she was relying on, and I wrote 3 songs, and this is one of them. And the key part is from Revelation 21, "See the home of our God among these mortal plains, the city of great love, where sorrow, death, and pain will surely pass away." So it's from Revelation, and I love it because it's sort of envisioning. N.T. Wright will help you get there as a theologian. We have been taught as Christians that God is going to rescue the faithful, obliterate the earth, and then we all get to spend the rest of eternity in the holy hot tub in the sky. And that's and the scriptures don't actually teach that. The scriptures teach us that God loves what God has created. And God is not going to let this go down the toilet, not on God's watch, and God's watch is very long.
Yes.
And so, but there's going to be a regime change, not an earth change. Mm-hmm. And the regime change has already happened in Jesus.
Yes.
And so that's done.
Yeah.
When Jesus said, "Some of you will not pass away before, the new age," he didn't get that wrong. It happened on the cross. The king, the rightful king, has been seated.
Yes.
That has already happened.
We're in the end of days and in the new age at the same
apocalypse.
time. Yes.
The end of one era and the beginning of a new. It's apocalypse.
Yeah.
And so this song is sort of, in a sense, saying, yeah, it's happened, but it's still a little distant. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And so that's the
Well, and I love that you quote the Revelation 21 passage in the book, because basically you're giving insight to the listener that you actually skipped to the end of the book, saw how it ends. And that's sort of the joy that you hear in this song.
Yeah.
Because you saw the ending.
Well, I think this is what I think. Christians don't have an advantage in the sense that we're smarter, we're better, we're more beloved. All that's nonsense. We don't have that edge over anybody. I think if we have any edge, if there's like one of the I shouldn't say it's the only benefit, say, of being a Christian, but I think the way I think about it is that for those of us that sort of want to get on board with where God is taking this story, the benefit of that is we get a glimpse of how this is going to end.
Right.
We get a glimpse of the final chapter, and the point of that is so we can tell other people, like, take heart, take courage. Courage comes from the heart. Take courage. This ends well.
Mm-hmm. And that's how we can have joy, right? Yeah. And I think it's interesting. My pastor, actually spoke on this a couple of weeks ago about how we can have joy even amongst all of this suffering, even amongst all of this trial and seemingly dark time, because we're not battling for victory. We're battling from a place of victory.
Yeah.
Like we already know the outcome. It doesn't mean that we get out of the battle. It doesn't mean that we get to escape all of this.
And it doesn't mean we're special. It doesn't mean we're better.
It just means that we know that battle has already been won. We still have to do our part. We still have to fight the fight. But we know who's going to win. And that's the joy that people should see. And that's the joy, I think, that they hear in this song. Yeah.
So when you have, here's something interesting. Julian of Norwich, I think, is that 15th century mystic, and she's the anchorite who wrote the famous line, "All is well,
Yes.
All is well, all manner of things shall be well. She wrote that during pandemic. Like massive. We're not talking about a pandemic of our proportion. Ours actually pales in comparison. So her city of Norwich, I think they lost almost half of their citizens in the one town.
Wow.
And it wasn't just sort of like, what I hate about the language right now is like part of the pushback against our sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Our behaviors is, well, it's really kind of the old people dying.
Like that's okay.
Yeah. So, we should be careful, Well, in that day, it was the young people as well as babies that were dying. And she wrote that sentence, that phrase, all will be well, all manner of thing will be well, and all is well. Back then. That's an interesting thing. But I think because, again, she somehow was granted a bit of foresight to where this is heading. I think part of us knows it's true, even if the current reality is hard to accept.
We know where our home is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's listen to The Home of Our God.
Let my eyes see your glory, Lord. My heart is awash with groaning, glad in the heart of your servant, for you are the light of the morning. See the home of our God among these mortal plains, the city of great love, where sorrow, death, and pain will surely pass away, will surely pass away. See the home of our God among these mortal plains, the city of great love, where sorrow, death, and pain will surely pass away, will surely pass away. He will wipe every tear from our eyes and adorn us with joy as a bride. See the home of our God among these mortal plains, the city of great love, where sorrow, death, and pain will surely pass away, will surely pass away. He will wipe every tear from our eyes and adorn us with joy as a bride. He will wipe every tear from our eyes and adorn us with joy as a bride. Let my eyes see your glory, Lord. My heart is awash with groaning, glad in the heart of your servant, for you are the light of the morning.
The Home of Our God off of Steve Bell's newest CD, Wouldn't You Love to Know? Steve, the joy and hope in that song, you can feel it when
Good.
you listen to that song. Yeah,
Good.
like the smile, whether you try to fight it or not, the smile will come on your face when you hear that. You whistle in that song. Tell me about the whistling. I love it.
It just struck me. I mean, it's if you look at all the songs that I've written in my lifetime, only a few of them are unapologetically happy. I mean, I've got songs that are lovely and all that kind of stuff, and there's very few songs that are are blatantly miserable either. It's just kind of most of our life is in between those places. But every once in a while, you get a moment of joy that is not where nothing takes it away. You're just all is well. Like you can feel it, that you're oriented and things are well. And so that came from that sort of a place, and it just seemed appropriate that what you do when you're in that time is you whistle. And when I walk my dog, I whistle because it's a sunny day, and so part of me just like, I remember when we were recording and I started to whistle, just, here's where the solo is going to be. And I went, oh, because I was thinking it was going to be
the solo.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be a mandolin solo or a guitar solo or something. Here's where it's going to be. And then I don't know if it was my idea or Murray, because that's actually my producer, Murray, who we should talk about a little bit about. He's brilliant on this record. But at some point we thought, well, that actually is what the solo should be. A whistle is the only thing to do. Right?
Well, and it just, there's something joyful and very hopeful about whistling.
Yeah.
And it just takes it to that whole other level, which I love. Yeah.
Do you know what? When I was a late teenager, my first sort of big person's job was I got a job working with a house painter, and he taught me to paint, and I worked with him, and he got a job. We were painting a hotel that was being renovated in Stonewall, and this was one of my first gigs. And so they wanted me to paint somewhere where I could do the least damage, and so they sent me into the men's bathroom to paint the bathroom stalls. The dividers. They wanted to change the color, so I'm in one of these stalls, and the little door's closed, and I'm painting away, and I'm whistling, and I came out, and there's an old carpenter who's out there, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Oh, says, that's a mighty fine whistle for a young fella." And it made him happy that a young person knew how to whistle. And I've never forgotten that my whistling, he was out there listening, and it was bringing him joy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, the song is definitely full of joy, and really enjoyed listening to it. And then again, as you go through the album in order, you go from that sort of whistling, joyfulness to a song called Long Shadows.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. And we've just lamented the passing of my father. So it's not written in a context of Pollyanna.
No.
Right. It's not denying suffering in any way, shape, or form. It's a moment of respite in the middle of everything else.
Well, if anything, it reminds us to grasp those moments of joy and to embrace them and to not feel bad for them. It's okay to be happy, even in the midst of mourning. It's okay to be happy with all of this going on. In fact, we should embrace it and internalize it as much as possible.
Take it when you can get it.
Yeah, because the next song, Long Shadows, is really... It's a warning, and it's a description of the time in which we live.